get absorbed in, and you are Sonic.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to No Repeat, a podcast where we pick 3 songs every week with no repeats and no do-overs to create a spooky playlist for every occasion life throws at you. Joining me are my co-hosts from Pennsylvania, Tyler Reed.
This is the Freedom Country.
Dr. Hutt.
And from his castle atop Mount Evans, it's Sean Evans.
I saw something kind of scary this week. So you guys know that GM is going to make an electric truck?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
You know what it is?
No.
It's a Scooty Puff Jr.
No. Close. It's a Scooty Puff Senior. The electric truck is actually going to be a reimagination of the Hummer H2.
Oh, no.
Talk about not believing in something. Like, the first vehicle we're going to make all electric that's not like a really compact car is a Hummer.
Speaking of the mid-2000s, did you guys see that Hurricane Chris was charged with murder?
Oh, good.
That's right, Hurricane Chris of A Bay Bay and Halle Berry, She's So Fine fame. I just hope Halle didn't have to see this. I'm sure she would be very disappointed.
How's Halle doing? I feel like we haven't checked in with her at all. Sure, she's fine. She's probably sitting on a pile of money. She's good.
She got that Catwoman money.
That critical acclaimed success. Catwoman.
Well, Tyler, we're not here to talk about Catwoman or any other Halle Berry flicks, as far as I know, but what was our challenge this week?
This week, we're challenged to find the perfect song for willfully giving yourself to a hot vampire, submitted by our friend of the show, Dana Whitford, signed and signified. If you want to submit your own challenge to No Repeat, you can DM us on Instagram or Twitter at NoRepeatPod, or you can always send us an email at norepeatpod@gmail.com. Thanks so much.
When we talked about this challenge last week, you know, because we go over the challenge to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Sean said, and I quote, "This is going to be a horny one." So I just want to put that out there right now for the listeners. You better be horny for this one.
We're real wet and wild tonight. Don't you worry.
We're going to try and keep it PG-13 at best, but this is going to be an experience for us all.
Oh, God.
Now, listen, we've had some tangentially sexy topics before, and we've also really
I feel like I could have went way hotter on this song, and I just...
Yeah. We've peered into my love life on multiple occasions on this show for no reason other than for Sean's sick enjoyment. Listen, this is fine. This is nothing new.
Well, so let me, I guess, talk about, as usual, historical context, because I'm a big fat nerd.
As you would.
I took a class on horror cinema earlier this year, and one of the things that we spent a lot of time on was vampires and queerness, because generally speaking, vampires are always coded as queer characters in film, partially because they reproduce semi-asexually, and partially because they kind of live on the fringes of society, and they can also seduce people of both genders because blood is blood. But then there's also this like resurgence of the vampire right after the rise of AIDS, because there's all this phobia around blood. So you get things like Interview with the Vampire in the 90s during the AIDS crisis. So there's a lot of really loaded queer and sexual imagery with vampires to begin with. And so then when we're talking about willfully giving yourself to the vampire this week, I felt like I personally, from my own queer soul, needed to just like go at this with a little bit of that element. Because like, I don't want to say that like I'm into vampires, because I think that's not an appropriate thing. But I do think that there is like an inherent sex appeal to the vampire. Like that's how they seduce their victim, you know? And so it kind of has to be a little sexy, because otherwise the vampire's not doing their job, you know? You have to invite them in.
Yeah. Which, let's be clear, consent, which is important.
Yeah, vampires are very woke. They're very into consent. So I really wanted to capture something that had the kind of like, should I or shouldn't I, like, kind of seduction, kind of like seedy underbelly, but still like, you know, there's an element of like, oh, well, I'll just be bad. I'm on vacation. Let's be bad. You know, you're willfully giving yourself. You're not like super. I can't imagine being like, you know, what's her name from the Twilight books? Like, oh, he's so sparkly and I will devote my entire life to him. Like, I'm imagining this as more of like a, well, something about this vibe isn't right, but like, they cute, so. But what did you guys, how did you approach this?
I figured if I was, I don't know, I had a little bit of a philosophical conflict here because I feel like as soon as you have a conversation like this, it always, and you're probably familiar with this because of your class, but like it always deviates into like a definition of what something is, and then like a type of what, you know, like there's like the vampires. What's that show out right now that's about vampires?
Whoa, which one?
Not True Blood, because that's over.
No, the one on FX.
Vampire Diaries, already over.
That has like the energy vampire and stuff.
Energy vampire.
Oh yeah, What We Do in the Dark.
Oh yes, based on the Taika Waititi film, yeah.
But there's like all kinds of. I thought that like Sarah has watched it a few times, and I've like over her shoulder seen it, and I think it's really funny because the vampires are like a different. They're like different kinds of vampires. Like they're not like the blood sucking ones. There's like an energy sucking one, and there's like the blood sucking ones, and all the different ones. But like, so I wanted to like figure out what kind of vampire I was picking this song for, and because they're hot, right? So they must be attractive. That's the first one. Check that box. So clearly they're hot. But then I was wondering, like, do I want the kind of vampire? You know, like, how do you want your look at the menu of how your life plays out with this vampire? How does it end? You know, does it end with you continuing to like be a? You know, are they kind of like? Is blood just a metaphor for any relationship that you're in where they just keep leeching off of you and you surviving off of you, like, you know, probably my life? Or is it like, you know, or is it one of those like classical vampires where they just like go for the jugular and then it's gone, you know, like poof, where your life is ending? So like, how does it go out? Does it go out in like a burst of love, like an orgasmic super explosion end? Or is it kind of like, you know, leeching?
Okay, so Sean brings up an excellent point here. I want to pause, not to interrupt you.
He just said a dick joke.
But there's a lot of really interesting discussion to be had when you're talking about vampire stories around closure and narrative closure, because a lot of times vampires are immortal, almost always, in like the traditional sense when you talk about a vampire. And so then it becomes this question of like, well, how do you deal with temporality? Like, how do you deal with the fact that characters have to die? And it's really common for the vampire to come into town, seduce the young people, do their queering of the young people, kill some folks, and then
do their queer.
And then they kind of like run off into the sunset alone, because the vampire can never be happy. They have to like continue to be this like bloodthirsty threat. Whereas sometimes you get a really subversive take on that. A great example of this is Nosferatu, which is one of the most famous vampire films, where in the end, the woman who is supposedly being seduced by the vampire essentially lures him into her bedroom and then keeps him there until daylight. And he's so seduced by trying to get her blood that he doesn't realize the sun is rising, and he vanishes in a puff of smoke, and she survives and marries her fiance and has a lovely heterosexual life. And so there's always this like question of how do you resolve the vampire? And I think that's an important point that Sean brings up of like, when we talk about these songs, we have to think about like, you know, it's not just the moment where the teeth hit the skin. There's a whole other portion to this story that happens after that is just as important.
See, I don't think it's, I want to go with it. Like, I want to go with the more modern interpretation of the vampire, that it's not necessarily teeth hitting skin here. You know, I think that okay, I can speak to me. So my vampire is not a one and done vampire, you know, like a hit and get. My vampire, they continue to come back because they love me. So just to put it out there. Also, my wife is sitting like just on the other side of the room, so she's hearing me say all of this, and she's probably like, "I had no idea this is what you were talking about this week." So she kind of had an idea, but still. But go on. I'm curious to hear what you guys thought, because I don't know. Maybe I went a little bit. You can't. I have so many like different things that I say here. Like maybe I went a little too deep on this, and all I can think about is like fangs sinking into necks and stuff. I'm just like, oh, okay, well, maybe that cliche is terrible here. Or maybe it's just right.
I mean, I have a very, like, fantastical perspective on vampires because the two most recent forms of media I've consumed that involve vampires, which is Blood Bowl, being a competitive strategy game where you simulate football, but you can kill each other, but you're playing as, like, orcs and elves, and I have a vampire team in which the vampires have to feed on their thralls in order to continue playing the game, or else they will just walk off the field. So there's that strange connotation. And then more seriously, was the Castlevania sort of anime series in which the primary, like, sort of like the start, like Dracula, who, spoiler, ends up dying or whatever, he gets sent to hell. Listen, whatever, who knows? But he had like a wife that he like was very very loving. They had a great relationship. The problem that happened is that she was a scientist, and the townsfolk didn't like that she was like conversing with Dracula and like learned magic, or like, but they considered it magic because it was science and they were very religious, and so they killed her, and so then he went on like a bloody rampage. But as it turns out, in this world, there's like multiple vampire sort of clans, and so they just like there's a like subplot where these humans become like thralls to these vampires, and so they just sort of like are almost just like their dogs, and they still retain most of their like humanity, but they just kind of are like just subservient, and they are like in a way like can't really escape from like their existence, I guess, in a way. So like the vampirism, like I'm kind of like familiar with this, just more like I'm just sort of like my brain chemistry is just changed to be like, well, it's just you forever, I guess, and so like and I guess that's probably a way a lot of them are, is kind of like Taylor was saying, but of course the vampire like has to leave in order to keep getting blood. But I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, but in Castlevania, they like feed on people like cattle. They have like cattle humans, and that's weird. But that's not like the person you're like, this is like a sort of like pseudo relationship. This is, I feel like, is what we're kind of like the implication of this.
Well, they're hot, so clearly you're attracted to them. It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
you're attracted to them.
What am I supposed to do?
I mean, I don't know though. Maybe what if? Okay, hypothetically here. What if you, like, found a vampire you didn't know, and then you were attracted to them, thought they were hot, you, like, went up and, like, started putting the moves on, or however, your preferred method of talking to them or reaching out to them, and they, like, denied you? Like, does that make you feel even worse that, like, not even somebody who was, like, ready to just use you is, like...
I don't feel like vampires can afford to deny people.
Oh, so the thing is, have standards. That's how to tell if you're not a vampire.
I think so.
I feel like the difference is either they suck you dry, where you're just like, you become a husk. Just,
oh yes, you're absolutely right. Yes.
If you're ugly, like we'll just let you die. I'll just suck all the blood out. If you have something of worth, you're valuable, and you only suck a little bit, and then you go find someone else that's like, is that a betrayal of the relationship? I don't think so.
So if you go to a place and it's...
Well, and that brings up the interesting question, too, of, like, who do they choose to convert?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, a werewolf...
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, you get converted at some point, too, right?
A werewolf, they bite you, you're converted. It's a one-in-one thing. But, like, usually with vampires, it's either one bite and you're dead or one bite and you're converted. But sometimes you have these vampire stories where it's like, well, if we drain so much of your blood that you can still kind of live, you become a vampire. But if we drain all of your blood, you die. So, like, how do they make that choice? Like, that's got to be the challenge.
Well, you wouldn't want to pick all the hot people because you'd still want to be attractive. If you were, like, if you were surrounded by other hot vampires, you would assume that you would die. So my assumption is don't go to really weird towny bars. Those are probably the most likely to have vampires. But if you go to the pretty bar where, like, Ricky Munez is hanging out with his little band twice a year playing on whatever they do. What's his name?
How did you...
The guy that plays Malcolm in the Middle? Frankie Muniz.
Frankie Muniz, yes. How did you pull that out of all the people?
I just thought, in places where I had constantly frequented certain bars, where did all the pretty people go? And the answer was not the Skull.
No, but have you run into Frankie Muniz in a bar?
No, his band used to come play at Jackio's all the time, like twice a year.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I do remember this.
You don't remember that? Because he like comes to Athens because for some reason you're like, why are you here?
Yeah, I do remember this now that you say that. I forgot about that.
And everyone's like, we're going to go see Frankie Muniz's band. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, they sound like a bar band anyway, so no surprise.
While we're talking about child stars with bar bands, it amuses me to no end that Macaulay Culkin has a band called the Pizza Underground that only does pizza-themed covers of Velvet Underground songs.
Oh my god.
Is he still doing that?
I think he is, and I really hope he is, because what a stupid, stupid idea that you can only get away with when you're Macaulay Culkin. Anyway.
Listen, he's probably got some money hanging out.
At least his brother is successful.
It's true. His brother's a very talented actor. But let's get into some picks.
God.
Incredible.
Speaking of vampires.
If nobody is opposed, I can go first this week.
Oh, we'll do.
Great.
This week I chose Vampire by Dominic Fike.
I only saw up to tell everyone at this party's a vampire. This ain't red wine. We're all over the bus uppers, moving up under the moonlight like we're vampires. They can tell that your mind is a mess. Texting when you don't even like to your bed. When it's over, you roll out, you come down the stairs, and there's no sign of party band.
All right, so part of the reason I wanted to go first is because my song is a little on the nose. This
That's
song
correct.
is about
Tad bit.
Dominic's character is essentially warning someone that the people at the party they're at are vampires. But the thing that I find so interesting about this song, besides Dominic Fike, who I'll get to in a second, is the kind of conflicting message it has, where it's like, hey, don't go in there. Here's a sexy 90s R&B jam to tell you not to go in there. Like, the song literally gives a co-writing credit to Jennifer Lopez because the chorus is a revision of her 1999 single, If You Had My Love. Like,
Incredible.
This song has major sex appeal. It's got like a groove to it that just, it feels like you're swinging your hips. Like, it's got something to it. And I just find Dominic Fike a really interesting artist at the moment. He is a mixed race Filipino African American artist from Naples, Florida. And he has gotten compared to all sorts of different people, from Jack Johnson to Motown singers to different rappers. He's worked with famed producer Kenny Beats on a couple of tracks. This is the third single off his debut album, What Could Possibly Go Wrong. The other two singles are both excellent. I find him really interesting because he's kind of enigmatic. Like, he's singing, he's rapping, he's doing 3-part vocal harmonies. It's all kind of processed. Everything's a little compressed. Like, it feels very of this moment, but very timeless. And in this song where he's talking about, like, you know, I only showed up to tell you that the people at this party are vampires, and if you stay past midnight, they're gonna suck your blood. This ain't red wine, this is blood. Like, it's ominous, but he sings it in such a sexy way that I'm kind of like, this feels like what would happen if I went to a vampire party. You know, they invite me to their like haunted mansion, and it's all vampires and me, and then Dominic shows up and he's like, hey, yo, you should leave, but I'm like already under the spell of one of the vampires. And I'm like, nah, I think I'm good. They got free booze and I'm here now. This is me. Like, this is my vibe for the night, you know? And he's just the well-meaning friend who wants to get me out of there. He wants to save me, but there's nothing he can do.
You see, I like the song. I get the credit to J-Lo because I think it's there. But also, as soon as you said it to me that this song is like compressed and kind of flat, now that's all I can hear. And now I'm like, it doesn't go anywhere.
I do think that's his biggest weakness as an artist, is everything is very flat. It's very, I first discovered him, I think, like on a TikTok, and it feels like music that's like made for like Instagram and TikTok. It's very compressed.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Because now I'm like, well, it's a little. As soon as you said it, I'm like, well, now it's underwhelming.
I kind of come back around on it. Like, I hated the compression the first time I heard it, but I come back around on it because I feel like it has this, like, early bad MP3s kind of nostalgia to it. Like, remember when you used to download an MP3 of something on LimeWire, like, the day that the album came out, and it was, like, the lowest quality CD rip that somebody could put on there? That's what this feels like to me. And I have, like, big nostalgia for that.
Oh, I don't.
You know, once you say that it's kind of like a late aughts, like, schmoovin' J-Lo, like, sex ballad, you're like, okay, alright, I can get it, because, like, I had to place it, because, like, listening to this song, I was like, I don't know if I get the appeal of it, because I feel like sometimes I feel like having a little extra context really kind of helps you understand, like, it's the mixture of the genres kind of combined. It's kind of like, if you don't understand, like, kind of what Rina Soyama is doing, like, when you have, like, R&B and, like, heavy, like grunge, like, metal chords, you're like, what is happening here? So I feel like this is like, kind of like a more, like, pop-centric version of that. And so, like, I guess I have to admire, his sort of, like, approach, because I mean, like, yeah, it does take a lot to guitar, rap, and sing, and he does all of them, like, you know, pretty good. You're right that the song is a little on the nose, definitely on the nose. It's like literally a vampire ass song. But I think I think it really does fit this challenge pretty well once you kind of like when you talk it out like that, because they're sort of like high society vampires. You know, you're not like meeting them in like a castle atop a cliff. This is like, you know, kind of like more like a Twilight vampire where you're just like kind of like at a party or, you know, high school.
It feels very glamorous, like True Blood.
Yeah. And so I think it really works well for that. And I can't imagine that this song wouldn't be in a show about vampires at some point. Like, it's just waiting for it to happen.
No, that's for sure. I feel like it'll fit good on the playlist too.
Sean, does the guitar remind you of John Frusciante?
I was just about to say that too. It feels like a very John Frusciante kind of feel. But it kind of has a more Crumb feel because it doesn't go anywhere. Like, John Frusciante is very good at like knowing all of the chords and playing in between them and getting like all of these minors and majors kind of like, you know, he can arpeggiate around a chord really nicely. And this one just feels kind of like when you listen to like all of the 3 songs that I put on this podcast that have been by Crumb, they all have that like jazzy sounding guitar, but that never really goes anywhere. It's always has like that 3 or 4 chord progression. This is the same way, which is fine. That's not a complaint. I'm just saying that this is how this song operates. But Tyler also brings up a good point when he says, this is a hot lovemaking song. You're not paying attention to the music structure here. You've got some other things on your mind.
To quote Tyler, you are schmoovin'.
Yeah, you're schmoovin'. You got a real... Yeah, you're schmoovin'.
You got a schmoove going.
You get yourself a potato. You got yourself a smooth going.
You got to go. You got things to do. You're busy.
I mean, I'm just saying, I want John Frusciante to produce a hip hop record now. I think that would be totally
cool.
Awesome. Yeah. But speaking of schmoovin', I think it's only appropriate that we go next to Tyler's pick.
And how?
This week I chose What's Your Pleasure by Jessie Ware. Oh my god. So, I'm not the historian here, so I'll let Taylor cover the history of Jessie Ware. Generically speaking, though, Jessie has typically been more of a ballad, a little more straight up and down kind of female vocalist, but with this new album that just came out this year, What's Your Pleasure, she got some real disco influences going on, and it's hot. It's hot, hot, hot. Oh, baby. What's Your Pleasure is the title track off this. Frankly, it's a song I don't listen to very much because of how steamy it is. Yeah. So,
I'm so alone. So very alone.
I mean, this song is just like oozing confidence, and I really feel like this is sort of like what struck me about it, what made me choose it, is because she's totally in control of the situation. And it's almost like she's sizing me up. Like, are you worth? Like, you're giving yourself to me, but are you worth it? Can you take it slow? Can you get to know me? So, I mean, it's just got a great dancey beat. You know, she has sort of like an ethereal, wispy sort of like voice that's like calling to you that feels almost like, you know, it's very siren song like. And you can just kind of imagine you're in a club just kind of dancing. You can just imagine there's a nice beat kind of going on. You know, it gets not too, I don't know. That cut all that. Cut that me not saying anything. Oh my god. Anyway, it's a great beat. It's a hot track. I love it. I am a big fan of Jessie, and I'm glad I could get this on this playlist. I was gonna have to save this for the best song, one of my favorite artists of the year. I'm glad I got it in now, because I feel like this song isn't about vampires, but boy, does it match this challenge almost perfectly, I think.
Oh yeah, no, this is a hot track right here. I'm not gonna lie. If I was gonna lose it to a vampire, and by that I mean my life, and this was the one that was playing in the background, I don't know, man. This is like, I don't know, like salmon death kind of thing right now. You know, like you only get one shot at it. What song do you want playing in the background? This is a contender.
This is the kind of song that when it hits in the right moment, it's otherworldly, you know? And I'm not just talking about schmoovin'. I'm saying, like, if you're out at a club or something and this comes on, like, the dance floor is gonna get it. I was playing it this afternoon because my typical process for prepping for the show is that I just put the 3 songs on a little playlist and play it on repeat a few times through, usually while I cook dinner. And like, I'm sauteing some peppers and onions and I can't help but move to this song in headphones. I can't even imagine what it's like on a sound system. Like, this beat is powerful. It's got big vibes. Like, the weird thing about it is it's actually not that big in the production. Like,
no,
you have a really good driving bass line, you have some nice hi-hat heavy disco drums, but it's not big and reverby, it's not echoey, it doesn't feel like it takes up a lot of space. It's just the rhythm section is so tight and the synth stabs are so on point that alone would make a good disco track. And then you throw in the vocal and it's just on another level, because really this instrumental could be like a Giorgio Moroder, like Euro disco track from the 80s. You know, it's definitely playing in that space. But what I love about Jessie Ware and what she brings to this is this ethereal UK, like, future R&B thing. So Jessie Ware has been bopping around the UK, the London scene, since 2009. She kind of got started working with Subtract, which is an experimental electronic R&B producer / like act. It's hard to describe. Aaron Jerome is the person who is technically known as Subtract, but he releases albums where he brings in other people and like forms a full band for an album. And he works a lot with Sampha, who is, for my money, one of the best R&B singers in the world right now. Truly incredible, working in this same space, this very like ethereal, echoey, like poetic R&B. And Jessie Ware essentially came up working with Subtract and working with Sampha. Her first big single was a collaboration with Sampha, and then she did background vocals and other contributions for the first Florence and the Machine record, Ceremonials, because she's friends with Florence Welch. And so by the time she puts out her debut solo album in 2012, she's already been on some of the biggest records in the UK and the world as a backup singer or as a featured artist. And so she has always been kind of on the tip of the tongue of people who are really into this genre. And I think she's really starting to come into her own with this new disco material because she's doing something that feels like it's filling its own niche. I feel like a lot of her other stuff has been very of the mold of a lot of the people who are working in this realm. Whereas this track is, like I said, like it's bringing in this 80s Euro disco vibe. It's bringing in this like 90s house thing with the drums. Like there's a lot coming into it, and yet it feels cohesive, it feels impactful, and it feels sexy. Like you can schmoove to it, and that's what I'm here for. Well done, Tyler. It's ominous, it's sexy, it's dark. I love it. So then Sean was kind of the oddball out this week. Sean, what do you have for us?
This week I chose I Caught Fire by The Used.
I'm melting in your eyes. I lost my place, could stay a while. And I'm melting in your eyes, like my first time that I caught fire. Just stay with me, lay with me now. Never caught my breath. Every second I'm
So I kind of feel like a loser for picking this song because I was like, well, Daniel picked this, and I feel like I should have like really stepped up my game and found something better. But this week I've just been, as I go out on my runs every day, I'm like, I'm gonna re-listen to some like emo albums from the early part of high school, and I re-listened to this whole album, and I was like, this one is really good.
Front to back, so good.
I'm just like really connected to this album, and I don't know, the music video is so crappy, but the music is pretty good. And I just thought, like, you know, thinking about this challenge, I was like, if I'm gonna give my life to a vampire and hopefully they're not taking me out in one shot and they're hot, maybe I'll be in love with them and I'll just like really love them because they're like, I'll realize that they're out of my league or something, like most. And I just thought this was a good one, you know. It's just hopefully they seduce you into, you know, sustaining them.
I feel like there's only so much you could say about such a classic track from our high school years. It's like looking on it now, like I feel like when this album came out, and generally my thoughts on The Used, I was like, they're pretty like cheesy, like I'm not buying it. But like if I was like 5 years younger, I'd be like, maybe I would think that Burt McCracken's cute and I wanna be his love, his life forever and ever. But like kind of coming back to it now, I'm like, I mean, just kind of also like how MCR, like we're like, oh, they're an emo band. Like they're just a rock band. Like let's take it easy. They just have like emotional lyrical content, but we didn't know any better. But I mean, I actually walked away from this song kind of like with a fresh perspective. I'm like, it's not bad. Like it's definitely like I feel like if you sandwich this with some other tracks, they're like kind of like from the era, I'm like, yeah, it's good. You definitely kind of, I don't know, there's something about like I'm having this thought as we go along. Usually I have my thoughts more prepared, but I'm like thinking about like a lot of like men vocalists now, and I feel like I kind of almost miss the ferocity, sort of the intensity of like this era, because I feel like there's not as much like intensity kind of going on in the spectrum right now. Like maybe it's just what we're listening to, but like I kind of really appreciate how like intense it feels. And sure, it damages their vocal cords, they probably can't sing like that anymore, but you know, yeah. Yeah, you could feel it. You could feel it in their words, and you know, depends on how manufactured that era all was. You know, it's debatable, but I mean, like at least by the performance, you know, I felt something. And you know, maybe not like this is like a literal like soundtrack to being seduced by the vampire, but like lyrically, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a good pick for that.
I actually really cringed when this pick first came in.
Yes.
Because of what Tyler was saying. Because Tyler was like spot on when he said that this was a band that we all, at least people Tyler and I's age. So Sean is a couple years older than Tyler, and Tyler's a couple years older than me. So I feel like by the time Sean had graduated high school and it was just me and Tyler, The Used was kind of looked down upon because they really went downhill after this record really fast.
Ooh, there was one more, and I think after that they kind of fell off the radar. But generally, I understand what you mean.
Yeah, but there was just something about like The Used as a band that felt very like not cool. And I think you guys are absolutely right that coming back to this record, it sounds so much better than so much of the stuff we thought was cool at the time. I think part of that is due to the fact that it's produced by John Feldman, who, of course, was a member of Goldfinger and has gone on to produce tons of records, stuff for Blink-182, and I think he worked with like One Direction on an album. Like, he's done all sorts of crazy stuff. He's super good producer, probably a better producer than he was a member of Goldfinger, if I'm being honest. I think the polished production of this does it a lot of favors, because I talk a lot about this period and how a lot of the music we listened to sounded like trash as far as how it was recorded, because it was all just made on the cheap. It was cashing in on the emo trend. And I feel like The Used really hit the sweet spot on this record. I did a little bit of research on this song today, and one of the things that Brett McCracken has said about it is that it is about looking closely at a relationship that you kind of cherish. And I feel like that is a very good way to describe a relationship with a vampire. Like, you're kind of into it, but you have some reservations. And that comes across both in the lyrics, like Tyler was saying, and in his vocal delivery. Like, it's both kind of saccharine and sweet and a little bit mean and, like, snotty. He has always come off to me as one of the best vocalists of the era of being able to like deliver vocals in character. I feel like Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance is very good at that as well, in a way that like Patrick Stump from Fall Out Boy is not. Like, Patrick Stump is an amazing singer, but he cannot always like vocalize multiple characters within a song. He's always kind of singing from his point of view. And I feel like you really get a sense of both sides of the relationship in this song. Like, there's the love, there's the hate. And I think that makes it perfect for this challenge. And also, just that constant refrain of stay with me, lay with me is very powerful. Like, it's very evocative. The guitar work is great. The drumming is excellent. You know, it's a top-notch emo song, well-produced, well-written, well done. And it makes me want to re-listen to this record because this song and their cover of Queen's Under Pressure are the only parts of it that I remember.
Well, it's funny that you said that this was like, I don't know, the more that I listen to this song in particular and the other songs on the album, because I've just been listening to this one more and more, like very recently, is how many power pop elements and like power punk elements are in this particular song. And it kind of does have that, like, it does have a very Blink-182 feel. It does have a very like rebirth of like the post ska kind of like bass little deal, and it has like, you know, it has a lot of elements of the time that separate it from Nobody, which kind of makes it good because you're used to hearing it. Like, you can find something in it that reminds you of something else, and that's kind of alluding to what you were saying earlier. In hindsight, we can probably look back and say that emo was very boy bandish a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it's mass market appeal and blatant money grabbing. But that said, it's like when people use cliches. You might be annoyed by cliches, but the reason that they're cliches is because they probably work. And if you have Brian Eno's deck of cards to help you do something correctly and write music, one of the things that he says is do not shy away from cliches because they work.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Ooh, future
Reusing
challenge.
disco.
Anything Brian Eno has ever worked on.
Wow, that was like
that would
any other week
forever.
on here. All right, now it's time for notable B-sides. These were songs that were so close to getting on this week for your Hot Vampire Challenge, but didn't quite make it. I'm excited for this one, though. I feel like sometimes we have like a lot of B-sides. Sometimes we have like not that many B-sides, especially for me. This feels like a really deep one for B-sides.
There's a lot. There's a lot of ways you could have went.
Yeah, I have a lot. I really had to hold back because I've already picked a track off of Iggy Pop's Post-Pop Depression.
Interesting that you would even say Iggy Pop for this challenge, but okay.
Oh man. Break Into Your Heart, the first track on Post-Pop Depression, is so sinister and terrifying.
Oh, ooh,
and I
okay.
love it. And I feel like it would have been a great pick for this. I have also overpicked Moby, but the track I'm in Love off of his generally maligned Disco Lies record. I think that's what it's called. No, it's called like Last Night, I think is what it's called. It's a dark disco track that I'm like super in love with. And then I had 2 Arctic Monkeys songs because I feel like what's his name? The singer from Arctic Monkeys is basically a vampire. I had My Propeller and She Looks Like Fun, which is very sadistic and kind of like puppety, like I don't know. They just say She Looks Like Fun in this very like dark voice over cabaret pianos, and it feels very vampire-y. So that's what I had.
So I probably have like a C and a D list, and like I like Googled or I like searched on Spotify for funky, sexy vampire playlists. Like I found like 3 or 4 ones that had some combination of those words. But what I ended up choosing, like kind of like my B list actually, was Criminal by Fiona Apple, Tear You Apart by She Wants Revenge.
Why is She Wants Revenge not on this playlist? Tear You Apart would have been great for this challenge.
I Put a Spell on You. There's some people who did a lot of work for this challenge that weren't me, and I'm glad that they just made like a playlist of 1,000 songs on it. But there's a cover of it of I Put a Spell on You by Isa, which is great, and then Spellbound by Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah,
Susie's not on here yet. She should be.
Susie should be on here. Should have been on the CBGB episode.
Did she really do that?
I think so. Either way, let's just do a goth episode so we can get Susie and the Cure and the Smiths and all that stuff on here. That'd be fun.
Yeah. No, you're right. Somebody submit that challenge. Yeah.
Oh man. See, I really reverted right back to high school for this one. I was like, I Miss You by Blink-182 would probably be on here.
Ooh, Wes from All the Spiders.
Probably.
Catchy things eating their insides.
That's what I mean. It just works.
Got Todd DeLonge, great lyricist. Oh my god. Icon. Sorry, I'm done.
Let's see. There's probably a lot of Taking Back Sunday on here. Probably maybe some Helena by My Chemical Romance. Really, basically anything in their discography would work on this one for. That's what I mean. It wasn't really.
That felt too easy.
I don't know. How do I say this? Well, that's what I mean. I wasn't looking for a hard one here. Like, I wanted to find something that was good. I wanted to find something that was, like, comfortable. Because
we're never trying to find, like, the white whale. Like, it's always, like, I wish I could spend 5 minutes and find the perfect song.
Yeah. It's like... on this kind of challenge, and it's not that this is a bad challenge at all, because I really like this challenge. It's, for me, the play is not writing something to, like, in the game. It's knowing the right play, walking up to the plate and executing. And, like, walk-off home run kind of deal. Like, it's not, man's on third, man's on second, single base hit out to, right field. That's exactly what you're doing. You're not, like... I'm not here to be like, we're going to rewrite the game. I'm here to just do it right.
No, you're absolutely right.
And there's so many emo songs that were just so good for this. Maybe Sugar We're Going Down. That would be a great song for this.
Well, to be clear, also, that absolutely holds up as a song. Just want to say, I listened to it and I was like, this is still an incredible song. This I'm like, I was thinking about like some of the best songs of all time. Like, because I was thinking about like One More Time. I was like, that has to be one of the best songs ever written. And I was like, I think Sugar We're Going is also one of those for the era.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would have been good. Listen, we don't need to talk about it. We're at the end show. We're at the end of the episode. This isn't time for this.
I'm not sure that's appropriate for this challenge, but I do think it's a great song. Tyler, if people want your tips on how to fashion their own wooden cross, where can they get that?
You can find my design illustration work at rudepets.club, and as always, you can find me on socials as Rude Pets Club on Instagram and Twitter.
Sean, if people bought too much garlic and they need to know what to do with it, where can they reach you?
You can find me on Instagram at TellySean.
And if you just happen to have like an old Gothic castle on top of a hill somewhere outside of Atlanta, Georgia that I could potentially move into and, maybe cohabitate with you even if you were a vampire because I'm looking for cheap rent, you can find me on the socials as TC Olmstead. All of these songs are on the No Repeat podcast playlist, and we'll be back next week with another not spooky episode of No Repeat.